Hello, my name is Cheryl Meyer, otherwise known as Cheryl M. Health Muse, and I am a health coach. I want to welcome you to my podcast, It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future-Proof Your Health. This is a weekly show that will share lifestyle changes that you can make to support your health yourself. Why do I want to share this information with you? 7 years ago, after being a business owner for 20 years, I woke up one morning in horrific pain where every bone and every joint in my body hurt. I went to the doctor. She ran lots of tests, and then she ran some more, and then she ran some more, and finally she called me and announced she was going to give me steroids, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with me and I should seek therapy. I knew something was wrong. I hurt. So she told me I would be on steroids for the rest of my life, and I refused that I was going to have a life of pain and pills. So why was I going to take steroids if there was nothing wrong with me? So I dug in and started researching, and I turned my business over to my staff. I found a functional doctor who confirmed that I had autoimmune disease. By making a series of significant lifestyle changes that I could do for myself, 5 years later, I had returned to relative health. The best part is that I am now 70, and I feel better now than I did when I was 50. I no longer hurt, which is huge. I will always have autoimmune disease, but losing the pain has been amazing. I went back to school at 67 and became a health coach because I want to share everything that I learned with others. And I wrote a book called It Feels Good to Feel Good, Learn to Eliminate Toxins, Reduce Inflammation, and Feel Great Again, as the manual I wished that I had had when I got sick, and my book has won 13 awards. So whether you want to future-proof your health and grow old with dignity and grace without dementia and chronic pain and disease, which you don't need to get, or whether or not you already have a chronic condition like autoimmune disease or cancer or heart disease, and you want to learn about what things you can do to improve your long-term health, or whether you want to improve the health of your families and raise healthy children, because 53% of our children have a chronic condition, I look forward to sharing all this information with you. I will tell you, it truly does feel good to feel good, so let's get started. I look forward to having you join me here every week, and I want to give you hope that if you have chronic pain or chronic disease, you can make changes that will improve your health. And if you don't want to go there, you're going to be fine if you listen to the show and put these things into work. I want to give you information so that you can grow old and have a better tomorrow. So thank you for joining me. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to another edition of It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future-Proof Your Health. Last week, we are talking about toxic relationships, and I went through whether or not it was a toxic love relationship, a toxic child relationship, a toxic parent relationship, a toxic friend relationship, a toxic relationship in the workplace, whether it be with a coworker or with a toxic boss. All of these situations influence and impact your health. And today we're going to go into some even more toxic situations, and then we're going to end on what you need to do to create a great relationship. The first thing I want to start with is Dr. Hyman just posted that toxic relationships actually damper the happiness pathways to the brain. So this is something serious. If you're in a toxic relationship, in self-defense, you have to confront it, you have to see if you can fix it, and if you can't fix it, you got to move on, because it is impacting your health. And as I shared, at the time that I got autoimmune disease, I was in, although it wasn't a physically abusive relationship, it was not a supportive relationship, and so I still consider that it was toxic. He did not want to do the things that I needed to do for my health, and he did not want me to dictate to him that he should do it. And so he became toxic to me getting well. In fact, when we broke up, it was fairly easy for me to lose the first 30 pounds right away because I just started doing what I always knew I should be doing instead of eating my way through Pasadena with him. So understand that the subject of toxic relationships for your health is dead serious. We also all have a little negative voice in our head sometimes, and that little negative voice can cause us to have stress and reactions to a toxic relationship with ourselves, which is not healthy either. So if you start thinking negative thoughts, there's a couple of suggestions that I have. Keep a notebook by you and write down whatever your brain just said to you, which is not necessarily telling you the truth. Generally, toxic thoughts are the result of your brain trying to maintain the status quo because it doesn't want you to change because it's comfortable. And so if you start talking trash about yourself in your head, write it down. And then on the other side of the paper, start writing all the things why it's not true. I don't know why you would say that about yourself, Cheryl, because blah, 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 blah. I don't know why you would say that about yourself because blah, 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 blah. Keep writing down the positives that counteract whatever that negative thought is until you turn it back around into a positive thought because you don't want your negative thoughts influencing and impacting your health either. And you don't need the negative thoughts. They're not telling you the truth, and all they do is slow you down. So don't put up with them. Okay, where we ended last week and where I want to start today is on narcissism in a relationship. Narcissism is a really weird thing to be around if you've ever had a narcissistic friend. The first time I ran across it, I had a narcissistic boss, and everything that I was noticing in her behavior, she turned around and blamed it on me. It was almost one of those moments where I thought my head was going to spin around, like in that movie where the demon came out of her mouth. It's really weird when you're noticing behaviors in someone else and suddenly they accuse you of exhibiting that behavior instead. A narcissist never takes responsibility, and therefore it must be your fault. So I want to go through some of the signs. I just had a girlfriend who left LA and moved far away and wouldn't let anybody know where she went because she was in a narcissistic marriage and none of us knew it. But she'd finally had enough and knew she had to protect herself. And so she moved and didn't let anyone know where she was so that he couldn't find her, at least for a while. He did eventually catch up with her, and flash forward a couple of years, she is now divorced and she's got a restraining order against him. And so he is not stalking her quite as noticeably, but apparently he is still stalking her a little bit. So you need to know the signs. Hopefully that will stop you from getting involved with somebody like this in the first place. And then if you are, you're not going to change a narcissistic person, so get the heck out. So narcissistic relationships come from somebody, one or both partners, who have narcissistic tendencies. The relationship can be filled with conflict. It's also filled with loneliness and pain. It becomes a relationship that is devoid of joy. Author and psychology researcher Sonia Lubinovsky defines happiness as the experience of joy, contentment, and positive well-being, combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile, in her book, The How of Happiness. According to Mayo Clinic, people who have a narcissistic personality disorder have an inflated sense of their own disorder and a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy towards anybody else, even their love or their significant partner. Behind this mask of extreme confidence is a very fragile self-esteem that's vulnerable to the slightest criticism. Signs. You hold back on constructive criticism because you don't want the way you know the person's going to react. So you're always playing second fiddle to their wants and needs and desires. In fact, your needs don't even come on the radar because if they do, you know you're going to set them off and you want to avoid that at all costs. Your partner is focused on themselves and they never ever consider whether you would like to know that, like to do that, or would need that. So a narcissistic person is all about them. The conversation revolves around them, their exploits, accomplishments, and how wonderful they are. And they never ask about you. Usually it's only what you think of them because the focus has to be totally on them. They suck all the energy out of the room, narcissistic people. And they want to know how you view them, and they are counting on it being that you view them as the amazing person that they know they are. The second sign of a narcissistic person is entitlement. Whatever they desire, they want it, and they feel it should be theirs, and don't get in their way of getting it. For his coworker, if they get the raise that he wanted and they didn't receive it, the job that was applied for and wasn't successful in becomes something that they want the other person to pay for getting it. And that other person is likely going to be you. Instant gratification. They want it now, be it sex or anything else. And if you don't give in to their request, you get criticized up and down. And they make you feel like you're no fun to be with and that there's absolutely something wrong with you. And you have to be aware of this because you want to make them happy. That's why you're in the relationship. And so you start to wonder yourself if they're speaking truth about you. And they're not. So stay grounded and know that what they're saying about you has nothing to do with reality. You're unfairly labeled and dismissed. One way that narcissists belittle you is by applying labels. As an example, you're being silly. That's absolutely ridiculous. Don't be so dramatic. Oh my God, but you're immature. They criticize. That point goes hand in hand with their entitlement, where they criticize whatever or whoever got what they wanted, and then they guise it as a joke, but it's not really funny to them. And you suddenly become the butt of that joke. Even when you tell them that what they said was not nice, their response will always be, I was only joking. Why are you so sensitive? I was only joking. I was making a funny. And then they'll be incensed that you took offense at their joke. They project and they accuse you of things that they're doing. Whatever they say and whatever they're exhibiting in their behavior suddenly becomes something that you're exhibiting towards them. That's where I actually went home and started researching narcissism because I had never dealt with that with anybody before. And she was a boss, so she had power over me. So it was really bizarre. Narcissists always play the victim. So think of the scenario, you're trying to explain how much you hate it when they argue with you, and the narcissist turns around and says, see, you are always starting an argument with me. No. You're telling them how much you hate it that they want to argue with you. But it gets all flipped around. And I think we all know some famous people at the moment that are exhibiting narcissistic behavior, so you'll be able to relate to what I'm saying. They're baffled by you saying that you don't like it, that they want to argue with you, and you're baffled because they think you're the one who's picking the argument. It's a no-win situation. It's a lose-lose. The narcissist always turns it around so that they're the victim. Then, this one's a biggie because this happened to my friend who was in the narcissistic marriage. They isolate you and slowly cut you off from others. If suddenly they don't want you to be with your best friend, or they don't want you to see your family, and they start cutting you off from the other people who do love and support you. That's a narcissist. And you find yourself slowly getting isolated so that they're the only person that you have, and that's really an ugly situation. Next, they're crazy making. They do something known as gaslighting. It's a slow, calculated process to have you believe that you're crazy and that you can't trust your own judgment. It's the height of deception, and it's a total means of control. So gaslighting starts with the narcissist planting seeds in doubt, And then you notice that your partner's doing or saying something that doesn't seem to add up, but when you mention it, you're made immediately to feel like it's the most absurd thing you ever said. And then you start to doubt yourself. You can't let this happen to you because it's really ugly. So the next time you actually do catch them in a line, you're going to be confronted in such a way that they've convinced you that you're wrong. They will deny that they ever said it. They will change the story to confuse you. They will project their own behavior onto you, and they may even form alliances to reinforce just how crazy you are. When they start cutting you off from the other loved ones in your life that support you, one thing they start to do is plant stories with your loved ones, trying to convince them that you're not who they think you are either. And sometimes, in the case of my friend, he planted lies with her family that they eventually began to believe. So she got no support from the people that she loved the most either. So she eventually pulled away from them as well until she was far enough away from him that she could rebuild her life and then sit down with him and rebuild her relationship with her folks. Remember, with a narcissist, he can be the only winner. There's no possible outcome that they can conceive of where everyone gets their needs met. They're the only person that matters, so they're the only person that's going to win. A narcissist sees a threat to their ego, they're going to be the first to seek and destroy and ultimately win. They'll do whatever it takes to ensure that they don't feel weak, unnoticed, defective, or defeated, even if it means verbally or emotionally destroying their opponent, which is you. They'll destroy you, and they'll do it to protect their own ego. They do full manipulation to keep you under their direct control, and there are no bars held. So to leave, you've got to prepare, because otherwise you're not going to get out of there in one piece. So if you decide to leave, you have to be prepared for the tornado force that the narcissist is going to try to pull you back into. One of the best things to do is leave quickly and cut off all contact. That's easier said than done if you are childless, but if you have children, it takes even more planning because you got to get out with the kids and you got to go someplace that they can't find you. And sometimes that creates legal difficulties, so get legal support before you make the run. Okay, those are all the signs of narcissism that I want you to be aware of. And now I want to go and talk about domestic abuse. Since we just went through 2 years of isolation, domestic abuse has been on the rise. And with this isolation, all this together time has either bonded people together or it's created a situation where abuse is at higher levels than ever. Now, I will share with you that I'm really lucky, because if I had to be isolated with anybody, thank God I chose the man that I chose to marry and to be with, because he's totally delightful to be around. And through the 2 years of isolation, we've had a very good time with each other. But if you're with somebody who's abusive in any way, it can be the exact opposite of that, and it can be absolutely horrific. I was writing articles in a magazine for a woman who was domestically abused. She now has an organization that helps women on the street because she wants to leave no women behind. And in the last magazine that I wrote an article in for her, she wrote a little column called A Little Piece of Me. And I want to share that with you because I thought it explained the way somebody in domestic abuse feels better than anything else I had ever read. Leaving an abusive relationship was bar none the smartest decision I ever made, but it was also one of the hardest. I had walked away from something that I had believed and convinced myself was love. No matter how I looked at it, I was heartbroken. I had a loss of shattered hopes and unfulfilled dreams. I had this experience of an unbearable sense of loneliness, and I was confused why I could miss somebody who had hurt me so horribly, emotionally and physically. For months, I had to fight the urges to return to him, as I had done so many times before. I didn't want to let go of that dream of love that I had convinced myself was present. even after all of the abuse in the relationship I endured, and I still hoped for a chance for us. You see, my feelings for him didn't change the moment that I decided to walk out the door. I wanted our relationship to be better, not over. Accepting that it was over was hard. Even though I was the one who ran away in the middle of the night, I was the one who felt rejected. I had to stay away long enough so that he wouldn't take me back. I had to stay away until I no longer missed him. And I did, but it wasn't easy. Still, even after time had passed and the abuse continued, this time the person who was doing the abusing was me. I had to stop being the victim, and I didn't know what a healthy relationship was. I was lost, and I didn't know who I was supposed to be. I still believed that I wasn't enough. Leaving an abusive relationship was smart, but healing is hard. Hard, but not impossible. You have to learn to forgive yourself. And you have to learn that you are not abandoning yourself. Instead, you're standing up for yourself. And the pain of abandonment that has caused for you and for others is still present. So you have to work on that forgiveness every day. Self-forgiveness is for being so vulnerable to allow yourself to be used and hurt in so many ways. It takes acceptance of what happened to you and the strength to move forward without self-blame. It takes a new self-love, starting with sometimes reinventing exactly who you are and losing the person you used to be. But all of that is an adjustment, and it's not easy. The person that you tried to be just to please him obviously didn't work. So now it's time to find out who you are at your core and to be all the things that you have to offer to the world and to offer to yourself. It takes strength to break out of that mold because we accepted it as who we were for so long. My biggest words of advice for any of you going through this is be patient with yourself. Say I love you to yourself, even if you don't really feel it. Be as nice to yourself as you possibly can. Form a mental picture of yourself as a strong, independent person and focus on it. And slowly, over time, you will become this person. Now, I was not in an abusive relationship when my first marriage broke up, but I had been unconditionally loved by my family my entire childhood. So he was the first man who had not unconditionally loved me, and he shook me to my foundation. The way I finally built, first I explained in the last podcast, first I built back who I was as the professional person, because that had always been in place. Then I built back who I was as the friend, and my final step was to build back confidence in who I was as a woman. So a girlfriend and I wrote down words from a book called The Wild Succulent Woman by Sark. And if you're in this situation, I strongly recommend that book because she was sexually and physically abused, and her books are wonderful because they're filled with all kinds of fun watercolor art. And she has a thing where you talk about the fact that you are ripe, succulent, and juicy. And we both put this on our mirror. And every morning when we got up and looked in the mirror, we said that to ourselves. Good morning, Cheryl. You are ripe, succulent, and juicy. And then we would giggle. And later in the day, we would call each other and we would say to each other, you are ripe, succulent, and juicy. And we would even repeat it when we went out to lunch with friends or went out to dinner until everybody was sort of enjoying the game and they would start talking about us as being ripe, succulent, and juicy. Now, by sharing this, I don't want to take away from the self-esteem that needs to be built up if you leave any kind of a negative relationship. But you need to find what works for you, and it didn't take very long before I started to have the self-confidence that someone who was ripe, succulent, and juicy deserved. So find what works for you, but you got to get out, and it's not easy, but it has rewards when you start to rebuild who you are from the foundation up. See yourself every day as a survivor, as a warrior who is brave and strong and capable of getting through anything. Fight for yourself because you now are the only person to focus on, unless you have children, and then, of course, they need to be focused on as well. She wrote at the end of her column, "It has been 10 years since I left my last abuser. Sometimes I need to re-forgive myself daily. Some days I just to remind me to love me. But mostly, I'm healing. I'm healing and I'm reinventing myself, which some days is tougher than others, but it's certainly worth the work. And remember, be patient, because it's so worth the wait." Right above where I am talking about this, we're going to put all the phone numbers for domestic abuse, because if you are in an abusive relationship or if you're in a narcissistic relationship, don't be afraid to reach out for help or to even get therapy to help you, because your self-esteem has been shattered and you're going to need help to start to rebuild your confidence and for you to forgive yourself that you stayed in that relationship as long as you did. So use these phone numbers and start to find the help that you need. Now that we've covered all the different kinds of toxic relationships, I want to talk about how sometimes someone still stops us from our greatness. You have something special in you. And that was a podcast that I listened to by the great Les Brown. And if you have never listened to Les Brown, I have to tell you, he is pure pleasure to listen to. He says, always make your move before you're ready, because that's how you grow. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And certainly don't go, I'll do this when I finish that, or if I can do this, or if I can do that, then I'll do this. Go do it now. The rest of you will catch up with you. So have you ever been ready to do something, put the research into it, and then had someone tell you you couldn't possibly be successful at that? I'm a pretty strong person and I got a pretty strong ego. I've run my own business and I have my own business now. But every once in a while I give the ball of power away to somebody else who does that to me. So I think it's important that we talk about this, because I don't want you doing it to you, and I want you to be aware if somebody starts doing it to you. When I was finishing my second book on how I live toxin-free and how I'm able to sustain it with all the tips I've learned along the way, how I go to others' homes, how I eat out in restaurants, how I eat differently no matter where I am, how I do pest control, yada, 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 I wanted to do a rainbow cookbook ebook as a giveaway for people who supported me and promoted my second book. I gathered all the recipes and some of the fancy accoutrements to start cooking, and then set up the photography in my Sedona home, which has beautiful granite counters and plenty of room. My husband is very talented at photography, but he's an amateur, but he was more than willing to give it a shot, literally. So I was going to stage the photos as I prepared each dish, and then John would take the photos and I would include the links to the cookbook author, because I was not writing these recipes myself. And they were all going to be about different forms of rainbow food. They had all kinds of color in them. And I even found these fabulous rainbow powders that I ordered from Australia that are superfoods. And they come in screaming bright colors: hot pink, hot green, hot blue, hot purple. And you could add them to your yogurt or to your pancakes, all kinds of fun colors. They're called unicorn superfoods. Great fun. So I was getting ready to do my ebook, which was going to be a free giveaway. And I was going to use my use this, not that converting chart to change out the things in the recipes that I couldn't eat or that weren't healthy, so that they became my own recipes, but I was still going to give credit to wherever I found the recipe. And you all know I believe in eating color, for any of you who have been following me through these podcasts. So I wanted to give some visually appealing dishes to encourage those that follow my work to be as colorful as possible to eat the rainbow. So I mentioned it in the book group I was writing my second book in. The woman who ran the group was an influencer, and her best friend is a marketing magnate. And she called me after I explained my project and explained to me that there was absolutely no way I was ever going to pull this off. She had been a professional photographer, and to do this professionally, I would need to hire someone to take the photos. There was no way that John and I could accomplish this ourselves. Now, she has no idea what my past talents were. She didn't know that for most of my career, I designed jewelry for big box jewelers and that I have an incredible eye for color and for display. She didn't know that my husband's a rather remarkable amateur photographer, and he has one photo that's won awards, and he's always wanted to explore doing more photography. She didn't know any of this stuff, but I let her get under my skin. And so as a result, I lost confidence in doing it and ended up not doing the cookbook. She shook my confidence, and I thought about if I were to hire a professional, there's no way I could cook everything in a short period of time so they can take photographs of all the dishes, because I didn't have that kind of energy with my autoimmune disease. I needed to be able to make the dishes one at a time and then photograph them as they were finished. And so I just didn't do the project at all. And now I regret it because I still think it's an excellent project. So when we go back to Sedona this summer, I think I'm going to pursue it again because I don't have her little voice in my ear. I have my voice back in my ear, and I'm taking back my power. So don't let somebody who's never done something convince you that you can't do it. That's my point. That's a toxic person. She had a little bit of narcissism in her that she was the only one who would be able to do it. Bull. You can do anything you set your mind to, so don't let someone convince you otherwise. Whoever is trying to bring you down is already below you. Never forget that. Okay, Denzel Washington once said, "You'll never be criticized by somebody who's doing more than you. You'll always be criticized by someone who's doing less." Never forget that. I thought that was kind of a fun quote. And I'm sorry that I gave it up. I'm sorry that I let her talk me out of it. Growth comes when you realize that you do not have to experience life the way you've been told before or the way anyone is telling you to do it now. You are the captain of your fate. So focus on your dreams and follow them and do what you want to do. It doesn't matter what the world's known truths are. Investigate for yourself, do your own research, be brave, and swim upstream. There are things that we grow up believing that were frankly deceptions. When I started exploring food, there are all kinds of deceptions that marketing has taught us. And even about allopathic medicine, when I got sick, I had a doctor who told me there was nothing wrong with me. And I knew I was living in my body. She wasn't living in my body. I knew something was wrong. So thank God I went and started doing my own research because I tripped into the functional community, and with what I learned from them, I got myself 3/4 of the way back to a pain-free life, and then I found my own functional doctor who took me the rest of the way home. Don't let anyone convince you that whatever your goal is impossible, because swimming upstream isn't necessarily easy, but it's definitely worth it. Make sure, and then the other thing is, make sure everybody who's in your boat is rowing in the same direction that you are, because if they're not, they shouldn't be in your boat. They should be headed towards your dreams with you, and they should be influencers for good and positive things. So my next question is, who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? Because it's important. This is Les Brown again, and I want to share it. He told a story that when you go on a walk with somebody, either you adjust to their pace or they adjust to yours. So if you're surrounded by toxic people, you might adjust your pace to their pace and never find your own greatness. Community is only 3 degrees of separation to your greatness or not. So whose pace are you adjusting to? Are you becoming a power walker to keep up with them? Or are they becoming a power walker to keep up with you? Or are you slowing down and forcing them to slow down with you because you've adjusted to their pace, or vice versa? Never let somebody tell you what you can or can't do. especially if they have not done it. If you allow that, you are allowing them to place limitations on you when you're trying not to place them on yourself. So don't place limitations on yourself, whether they're yours or somebody else's. Most people never achieve their true goals because they're surrounded with toxic people. So it's time to detox the negative people in your world because you have greatness in you. That's a direct quote from Les Brown. You deserve to have the best people around you, to be on your team, to encourage you, to support you, to expect your greatness, and to encourage it. There are two kinds of people, toxic people and nourishing people. Surround yourself with the people who nourish you. And then take responsibility for yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. What does success look like to you? Does it look like failure? I don't think so. In fact, I don't believe in failure, which is why I'm so surprised when I look back on that I let her convince me not to try the project. I believe that if you try to get around a barrier and you don't get over the first time, it just causes you to take a step back and find another way around because you'll find it every time. And that is called success. So surround yourself with people who push you to do and to be better. They don't have drama. They don't have negativity. They just have high goals like you do and higher motivation. Good times and positive energy. No jealousy and no hate. They are people who simply want to bring out the best in you, and you want the same for them. Never forget, no is just one step closer to yes. So if someone says no to you, it just means you got to figure out another way to get around that wall. If you believe you can't do it, you're correct. That's from Henry Ford. Whatever you believe you can't do, you're right, because you won't do it. You'll never win if you quit. Okay, I'm back to another negative kind of person, and this is an energy vampire. Have you ever let this happen to you when you were with a person and you felt a bad vibe and like the person was stealing your energy? Don't pollute your body by absorbing the negative energy that an energy vampire is putting out around you. I recently came across an article that an interesting study was conducted in Germany, which shows that plants absorb energy from other plants. The science that studies behavior of energy in living things is called bioenergetics. This research was conducted on algae, specifically on one specific type, where it was discovered that in addition to photosynthesis, there was an alternate source of energy that would absorb energy from the other algae. In charge of this research was a German biologist named Olaf Kruse, and his findings were reported on naturesite.com. Science confirms that you absorb energy from other people. So you got to make sure that it's positive people that you're around because you don't want to be absorbing negative energy. And an energy vampire actually goes into your energy and starts to suck it away from you and into them. Our bodies are like sponges, absorbing the energy that's around us, which is exactly why there are people who feel uncomfortable when they're in a certain group with a certain mixture of energy and emotions. The human body is very similar to a plant that sucks and absorbs energy needed to feed your emotional state. And it can either energize or take away energy from your cells. And if it's energizing you, it can actually even increase the amount of cortisol and feed the cells depending upon the emotional need. This is why many people can change their mood, which leads to being nervous, stressed, angry, anxious, sad, or happy, optimistic, and laughing. There's a whole group of scientists studying something called heart energy. And heart energy can be felt something like 15 feet outside the body. Have you ever walked into a room and you immediately can feel if the energy is bubbly and happy or negative and dark? I've been able to do that my whole life, but I didn't understand what that was. And I can tell you often, if I sit in a room for any length of time, what's going on in everybody's life in that room, that's my form of empathy. But if I were to walk down the street and a tree were to fall, I might not even notice that it's there because I don't see my world, I feel my world. So in my chakra podcast, at the end of the last chapter, I do a meditation where I clear my chakras by bringing light in to the top of my head and then cleaning out each chakra as it goes down my body. This one goes front and back, the heart chakra, the solar plexus, then down one until you go down through your root chakra into the earth. You spread roots out all the way along till you hit the center of the earth, which is bright orange, kind of like the color of the sun. And then you sit there and you pull the energy from the center of the earth and you finally pull it up through your body, all through all your pathways again until it cascades out around you. Now, one of the reasons I learned to do that meditation was to protect myself from energy vampires and from other people who were negatively impacting my body. I was working with somebody who was very negative, who could actually give me headaches. And so by learning to do this on myself and even learning to do it on other people, I could clear negative energy from them. And so if you're interested, go back and listen to it. I use it sometimes just to fall asleep, but it's a wonderful way to clear negative energy and then protect yourself and protect your ethereal body as well as your main body so that you're not impacted by energy vampires or anyone else who wants to steal your energy. An article just ran on LinkedIn since I knew I was going to be talking about energy vampires, and here it is. I sometimes think there's a synergy where help comes to me to cover a subject in my podcast that I'm considering covering anyway. Energy vampires are people who even sometimes intentionally drain your emotional energy. They feed on your willingness to listen and care for them, leaving you exhausted and overwhelmed when they leave. They can be anywhere and they can be anyone. They could even be your spouse, for God's sakes, or your best friend. They could be your cubicle mate or your neighbor. They're toxic people who suck your life force out of you, leaving you emotionally exhausted, whether they're egotistical, manipulative, or just overly talkative. One of their favorite hunting grounds is the office, so employees need to be conscious now that we're returning to in-person work. Introverts and people who see the best in others are often the prime targets for energy vampires. I got attacked once psychically, and it was explained to me because I grew up with such unconditional light and unconditional love. I burned so bright that people who were toxic, who were looking for victims, tried to feed off of the light that I had. And it took me almost a year. That's how I learned this meditation, to learn how to protect myself so that I could not be under attack anymore. So this is a real thing, even though it's not something that we talk about. It's something to be aware of. Do it. I don't talk about this very often because I don't want people to think I'm crazy, like the people on the television shows who are getting spirits out of homes and things. I'm not crazy. These things are real, so learn how to protect yourself and be aware. If you're constantly having some kind of a physical reaction when you're around somebody, that's probably what's going on. Most people assume that people are good and are not going to try and harm them, but that is not true. Energy vampires look for light and they feed on weakness, and they go after anybody who's conflict adverse and easy to railroad. They want to prey on those who aren't comfortable standing up to them in the moment. So learning how to identify and respond to toxic behavior helps you preserve your energy and protect yourself from a great deal of emotional distress. They don't take accountability. They're always involved in some kind of drama. They're always one-upping you. Sound like narcissists, don't they? An energy vampire never likes to be outdone. They aren't keen to share their spotlight with you. It's one of their many narcissistic tendencies. They struggle to feel genuine happiness for anybody else. You'll never hear them say, I'm so proud of you. Only 3 more certifications to go and you'll catch up with me is more likely the way they'll respond. They diminish your problems and play up their own. They're always the martyr. They use your good nature against you. They use guilt trips or ultimatums. They're codependent. They criticize or bully you. They intimidate. And this is what it does matter. You can't be around these kinds of people because they demand a lot of the people they target. They are a continuous drain on your resources. And so what do you do about it? Number 1, you establish boundaries. Number 2, you never give them an inch again. Number 3, you guard your emotional capacity. My meditation is great for that. You cut them off completely. And this is the part of the article that I found most fascinating. If you're around an energy vampire and they're in your space, stand up and tell them to leave. It's the standing up that will intimidate them because they're there because they think they can intimidate you. The minute you stand up and take back your power, they're gone, and most likely they won't be back. Okay, so let's talk about what creates a great relationship. Remember, the first thing you have to do is build a great relationship with yourself, because the relationship and how you take care of yourself will determine and show others how you demand to be taken care of. So start there. If you have a strong relationship with yourself, you will start to attract very positive relationships to yourself. And the way to do that is to start with your non-negotiable list before you enter into a relationship. So what are non-negotiables? Now there's obvious ones. There's, you want them to be ethical. You want them to be kind. You want them to have a wonderful relationship with their parents and their siblings. You want them to have a strong group of friendships. Those are kind of the obvious ones that you can want in a relationship with someone that you're going to enter a relationship with. Those were all on my list. But number 1 on my list was I wanted somebody who would go on a get well journey with me. Because I had just been in a relationship that I got sick in where he didn't want to go on a get well relationship with me. So that was the first thing on my non-negotiable list when I went looking for a new partner. And then all those other things were there as well. So that you set out right from the beginning what it is that you're looking for. Now, I took a course from a woman named Allison Armstrong, and she's fabulous, by the way. I strongly recommend. She has studied relationships her entire career. And she recommends that if you are looking for a new partner, that you sit down right away and tell them what your non-negotiables are. So if you go out to have coffee with somebody you just met, you share what your non-negotiables are right off the bat. I'm not sure I would do it right from the beginning, but since I did go online with my list, I didn't have to because I put it right out in front right from the beginning. And when John, who I am now married to, responded to me, he went down that list to prove to me that he was the right partner for me if I would only give him a chance, and that he would be one of the nicest people I ever met if I did give him a chance, and he was right. So don't be afraid to ask for what you want. My mentor at the moment has a phrase called get your ask on. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want, because it's by asking that you actually manifest what it is that you're looking for. So these are some other considerations to have a positive relationship. Is the person that you're with open to learning more about themselves and open to learning more about you? Being open to learning how to love you and others rather than being closed and defensive is essential to start and sustain a loving relationship. Partners cannot resolve conflict unless they're open to learning. The question to ask yourself is, what does this person do in conflict? John is sitting right here next to me, but I'm going to share this anyway. If John and I have conflict, we'll separate for a little bit of time and we both think about it, and then we come back and we tell each other what we did wrong and what we're going to correct, because we're open to not having that conflict again, and it's worth the consideration to figure out from our own point of view how we added to the conflict ourselves so that we don't do it again. You need a partner who is not afraid to deal with conflict and to make it better. Be open to lovingly resolving the conflict because that's essential for perpetuating a loving relationship. Next, is your partner capable of caring, compassion, empathy, and acceptance of who you are? In my last relationship, after we were separated, it finally occurred to me, he always saw me for who I wasn't. He never really saw me for who I was. And there's a lot of things about me that are good, and there's a lot of things about me that are bad. But he never, ever gave me credit for all the things about me that are good. At least he never expressed them, even if he saw them. So you need somebody who sees you for who you are, good, bad, and ugly, but certainly who wants to celebrate all the good things about you. Next, do you feel a basic spark of attraction? Do you like to be near this person? Do you like the way they smell? Now, I know that sounds like an odd thing, but we are sexually attracted by our sense of smell. There are little things in there that actually register if we're going to be sexually attracted to the opposite sex that we're with person or not. I think that's pretty interesting. The nose actually is a new area of research. It's also where we make all of our niacin, which our body desperately needs. I just read that we need niacin to avoid heart attacks. Well, niacin is made at the top of the nose, and we have to learn to take deep breaths so that our body gets enough niacin. Well, your nose also can tell you if you're sexually attracted to somebody. Very interesting subject. If you don't feel physically attracted to the person within the first 6 months of the relationship, it's likely that the attraction's never going to develop. So the person might be a really good friend, but most likely they're not going to become a romantic partner. Next, does this person have a compulsion to win and always be right? This is the opposite to being open to learning and does not bode well for the relationship. If they're always in competition with you and they always have to win, it's not going to work unless you can sit down and talk to them and get them to be more open to change and to seeing the good and the bad of all situations. Next, do you share interests with this person? Can you do certain things together, or is there no overlap in how you like to spend your time? One of the first things John and I found, John's a mathematician. I was a lit major who designed jewelry. So one of the first things I said to him is, I don't know if we're going to make it because you're a left brain person and I'm a right brain person. And he immediately pointed out that his minor was literature in college. So his minor, my major, they met together. He's actually read 20 times more books than I had. And I was an avid reader all the way through college and into my early adult years. Now mostly I'm reading about health. But he shared my love for reading, and we have all kinds of things that we enjoy mutually, that we enjoy doing together. And he is 100% my partner in health. He produces my podcasts. He edits my books. He is there every step of the way for me, and he is now starting to write his own book, and I will do the same for him. So you need a partner who has similar interests to you and who enjoys working with you and working on projects together. Do you have common religious and political values? Now, I would have told you 10 years ago that maybe this wouldn't have mattered because we were not such a contentious political atmosphere. But in all honesty, someone on the opposite end of the coin politically now is not somebody I could be around because I disagree with them to the core of my soul, and they disagree with me to the core of their soul. So it's important for you to know if your religious beliefs and your political beliefs are in sync. John and I had different religious upbringings. He actually went to high school to be a priest, whereas I was brought up as a very nice little Protestant girl in the Presbyterian church. But we have enough of a similar foundation, and we're both very spiritual, that we connect on that level. So we're in sync both politically and religiously, and that's important. Does this person have any addictions that you find intolerable? Alcohol, prescription, recreational drugs, food, sex addiction. I'll never forget when there was a very famous movie star whose wife finally filed for divorce because he was a sexual addict and he was going at it with every woman he came across. And she just couldn't stand it anymore. I had never heard of sexual addiction like that before. But there are people who are looking for it all the time because they need to fill up their soul with whatever that gives them. So if you're not in tune, or if they have an addiction, you need to figure out whether you can stand it or not, or whether or not that's a deal breaker. It could be porn, it could be gambling, it could be shopping on the shopping channels, or spending too much money on TV or the internet or video games. When we love someone deeply, we love their essence, who they really are. And we all have an ego-wounded self. So the worst version of your partner needs to be tolerable to you, and vice versa. Don't expect them to change, because you get what you see, and they're not going to change, no matter how you think you're the better woman that's going to bring them along and you're going to get them out of that addiction. It's not going to happen. If they have an addiction that you can't tolerate, go find somebody else. Now, if when you go through the list you find there are things that are not tolerable, and you continue to hope they're going to change anyway, bang, you're not with the right partner. That is where it ends. So understand, it all starts with you. We need to know who you are, and you need to know who you are, and you need to love who that is. And then you need to project that so that whoever you attract to you loves who that is, and vice versa. How you love yourself will show you, your partner, how you need to be loved and deserve to be treated. If you're not treating yourself well, then most likely he's not going to treat you well either. And if you have non-negotiables, then most likely, if they're the wrong person, they're not going to stay anyway. Remember, we need to be the right partner to find the right partner. We need to attract at our common level of emotional well-being, self-abandonment, or self-love. The better you are at loving yourself, the better your chance of attracting and sustaining a loving relationship. So that's everything I have to say on both positive and negative relationships. Never forget, you're worth it to find the person who's right for you, and to surround yourself with loving and caring people who support you in your dreams and endeavors. And you need to make sure that you are doing the same for all of the people within your 3 degrees of separation. You don't want to bring them down. You want to be the guiding light that helps them be everything that they deserve to be for themselves. Okay? Thank you so much. Relationships and how you are in them directly impacts your health. It impacts your gut. It impacts your stress level. Your stress level impacts your heart. How much cortisol you even make at night impacts your heart and can cause heart attacks. So this is all important stuff. Health is a great big bubble of many pillars. So don't let any one of the pillars let you down when you're building towards your future health, because it's worth it to have it all. Since I have a little bit of extra time, we're actually going to pull my meditation to clear the chakras, to protect yourself, to relax you, to make sure all your energy centers and vortexes are running properly, because having your chakras all running properly and feeding their color with the colors of the rainbow in the food that you eat and in the thoughts that you think, all of that is part of health that's on a physical level within your body. So we're going to put the meditation right at the end of this. So I hope that you will pay attention and that you will practice it. The hardest part about it is seeing light. I used to look at a light bulb before I would start the meditation so I could pull that vision into my mind. Now I can just close my eyes and see light, but in the beginning it'll take a little bit of doing. But once you can see the light, you can manipulate the light to do a clearing in your body and to surround you, to protect you, and to clear out all your energy sectors. And so it's a really important meditation to learn, and I hope you learn it and that you enjoy it and that you use it for years to come. Thank you. The first thing I want you to do is look at something with light and then close your eyes and see if you can visualize the light, because visualizing light is really important in order to do this meditation. So you're going to start by pulling light in to your crown chakra. You're going to pull it in from the universe, and I want you to look at a light and then close your eyes and visualize that light and then pull it in to your crown chakra, and then I want you to take it in and out and in and out and in and out until you don't feel that there's any blocks there, until you can move that energy really easily in and out of your crown. And when it moves really easily in and out of your crown, I want you to bring it down and shoot it out of your third eye. And again, the light is coming down through the universe, through your crown chakra, down and shooting out through your third eye. And then take it in and out and in and out and in and out until the energy moves really smoothly. Now bring the energy down from the universe through your crown chakra, through your third eye, and down to your throat. And this is the chakra that opens in the front and the back. That was the way that I was taught. And so you're going to bring the energy in and out of your throat chakra. Now I get stuck here sometimes. So mentally while I'm doing this, I make sure that I do this until that pathway is completely open and flowing easily. Now you bring the energy down from the universe through your crown, you shoot it out through your third eye, you take it in and out of your throat, and you bring it down to your heart, and you beam it powerfully out of your heart and take it in and out and in and out and in and out until it flows really smoothly. Now you do the same thing. You bring the light down through your crown, through your third eye, in and out of your throat. You beam it strongly from your heart, and now you beam it out of your solar plexus. This is where I feel my greatest blockage. So I spend the extra time here, which I won't today, but I spend a lot of time making sure that my solar plexus, my gut feeling, is wide open and that my energy is moving properly out of this chakra and that this chakra is flowing smoothly. We're going to start again, bringing energy down through the crown, out the third eye, in and out of our throat, out of our heart, out of our solar plexus, and then down to our next chakra, which is where our hormones and our basic needs and our sexuality is, and we're going to shoot light out of that chakra. And we're going to clean it out until the energy works smoothly with that. And then we're going to bring it all the way down through all the different chakras, making sure that the energy is still flowing properly down to our root. And now, instead of taking it in and out of our root, we're going to beam a really strong light down to the earth. We're going to lay light roots as we head towards the center of the earth, laying out roots like a tree all the way down. And those roots are bright lights, and we keep sending out roots as we head down to the center of the earth, where it is a powerful orange glowing ball. And when you get down to the core of the earth, I want you to just sit and feel the warmth of that energy flowing around your roots and up through your root system until you feel totally grounded and that energy has done its purpose to ground you to the earth from the universe all the way down. Now you're going to start to bring the light back up. You bring it back up, shooting it out again, only now it's orange through all these root systems that you have laid, which have grounded you to the earth. And then you're going to bring it all the way up through all of your different energy vortexes and all your different wheels until you come out of your top chakra, and the light is going to just cascade out of your top chakra so that you are surrounded with light. Every part of your body is surrounded by this flowing light. And now I want you to spin it all around you to protect you. And then I want you to take it in the opposite direction, north and south around you, and then take it down your sides and up the other side and down the other side and up again until you are just a large glowing ball. And now I want you to sit there and breathe and enjoy all of this fantastic light and feel how good it feels that all of your chakras are flowing and working the way that they were meant to, so that your energy is running properly through your body. Hello, could I see a show of hands if there's anybody out there like me who's tried to lose weight their whole life and not been successful? So you've tried all the different diets available. You've tried Weight Watcher. You've tried Jenny Craig. You've tried all the New York Times bestsellers. And the last time you did it, you started off great, just like all the other times. And you started losing weight, and then all of a sudden you fell off the horse. And before you know it, you're eating fast food and processed food again with all that sugar, and you don't even know why. And in the end, you've gained more weight than where you started out. So you now are beating yourself up that you just don't have the willpower to win. If that's you, I want to address the elephant in the room, because 9 years ago, I got autoimmune disease and started researching because I didn't want the pain that came with the autoimmune disease, and the added benefit was I lost the weight along the way. So let me tell you what happens. Big Food doesn't want you to win. They've rigged the system. They've put so many chemicals into fast food and processed food that they light up the brain like a pinball machine. It's the same part of the brain that goes off for cocaine and heroin, and you feel great when you eat that food, but it's not making you feel good, and you're starving your body for nutrition because it's loaded with empty calories, so you're getting fat eating that food, and it's not giving your body what you need. And it's turning off all your own feel-good hormones of serotonin and dopamine and even your insulin, which keeps your moods even. But worse than that, there's two little hormones here at the back of your neck called ghrelin and leptin, and they don't work, and they regulate your appetite because all those chemicals have subdued them, so you don't even know when you're full. So what did I learn to do instead? I'm eating the GLAD diet, loaded with all the phytonutrients that my body needs to be healthy and to thrive and to boost my immune system and to ditch the pain. And along the way of eating all this live food, I lost 60 pounds without dieting. You see, I was starving my body for nutrition when I was eating the standard American diet, and now that I'm giving my body all those beautiful phytonutrients, it's not holding on to it anymore, so it's just dropping it automatically. So don't eat the standard American diet. I don't want you to get a standard American disease, and I certainly don't want you to die the standard American death. Instead, start eating the GLAD diet, because by eating all those beautiful phytonutrients, you will be healthier and you will live long and thrive. Thank you.